Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by our friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Glad to have you along with us on this Tuesday. Don't forget the great promotion that's going on at Blue Water Climate Control right now for those single zone mini split units that are perfect for sunrooms, small rooms, garages, studios, bonus rooms, whatever you need. That room that's always a little bit uncomfortable, this unit can take care of that, whether it's heating it or cooling it. For more information on these units, for more information on all the great deals going on at Blue Water Climate Control right now, check them out online at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com or give them a call at 865-299-2290. Remember, you can book your appointment online for any need that you have at Blue Water Climate Control for any repair, and you can get a discount by booking online. So for more information, check them out, Blue Water Climate Control. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs on this Tuesday morning after what was a very loud, dark clouded, if you will, day for Tennessee on Monday with the ouster of Jeremy Pruitt and others in the football program, including two assistant coaches, the good bit of the recruiting staff as well, and the retirement of Philip Fulmer as Tennessee's AD. Had a chance to ponder it a little bit. Your thoughts after a few hours passed on what happened on Monday. Rob, we'll start with you.
I mean, we've seen a lot on this beat. And I mean, 20 years for me, I don't know, 57 for you.
87 is what it feels like today. But
he's been around, but today, I mean, what happened today was unprecedented, even for this place. I mean, 3 assistant coaches, 9 total staffers on the football side fired for, some level of NCAA violations. Level 1 for sure was mentioned. The announced retirement of a Hall of Fame national championship winning head coach as athletic director. I mean, even for this place, today was crazy. I mean, just nuts.
Now, you mean to tell you who the real loser is today? It's Butch Jones, because now he has competition on the same street that Butch's house currently still resides on. Jeremy's house will be going on the market. Jeremy's not nearly as big, not nearly as nice as Butch's, which means it's a lot less expensive, for potential buyers.
In all seriousness, though, AP, I mean, everybody's asking this. I mean, how did this get here? I mean, how are we here on this Tuesday that Tennessee is not only looking for a football coach, they're looking for an athletic director, and they're facing a cloud of NCAA over them that this program and this university has potentially never seen before. How is Tennessee here?
Well, I think it goes back to, Jeremy made a few enemies when he first got to campus. I think when the quote unquote whistleblower, I feel like I'm talking politics when we say that stuff. But when that happened, it just opened up an opportunity for some of those people that maybe didn't much care for Coach Pruitt to, see if they could knock him down a pedestal. And what they found was enough to knock him out of a job for cause. So, again, you go back, Tennessee goes to halftime at Georgia with the lead. The Vols are 2-0, and Jeremy Pruitt could probably have seemingly done just about anything in Knoxville. And then look where we are now, as we sit in the middle of January, and Tennessee's not only looking for a head coach, but an AD, and just what a mess we have on our hands. So that's kind of what I go back to. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that on the board, just, made a few enemies over time. And I think a lot of that just stems back to that first year where, again, he was learning on the job and was a bit of a bull in the china shop, so to speak. And probably didn't handle himself the best. I think he's probably grown during his 3 years. But again, you set a standard early, and then, it's hard to try to change that stigma.
Rob, it's going to be fascinating whenever the document dump happens, and everybody's requested it, of what all exactly is found and what the level 1s, what the level 2s are, and the alleged infractions that I'm told, I think we're all told, is somewhere in the dozens, maybe approaching 50 as a possibility. It's going to be really a long but a really eye-opening read, it appears, on what happens, because I thought of all the things that happened in the press conference on Monday. The Chancellor Plowman's quote about, astounding number, I think, or something like that, of infractions, and then the intent to hide those fractions and cover those infractions up. Certainly painted a very clear picture from her on what she thought has taken place and how they got to this point.
Yeah, and I think in talking to some people today that have some inside knowledge of the situation, I think the one thing that mortified her was that there were so many people involved. Like so many people obviously knew about it if you fired 9 folks, and yet nobody did anything to stop it. Nobody stood up and in the early stages and let some higher ups, let some grown-ups know exactly what was going on. And I think that's the thing. I think that's the biggest thing that she had a hard time, wrapping her arms around, was just how widespread the wrongdoing was and how many people inside the building knew about it. And I mean, the people that I hate it for are like the young folks, 25, 30-year-olds that are behind the scenes in the recruiting office, who I would wager were doing what they were told, by people well senior to them, who now will have a hard time, getting a job in this industry because of this.
All right, so let's look at it moving forward here, and obviously it's going to be very methodical, and from an investigation standpoint, it's going to be slow. But football has to move on, Austin. It has to continue. Kevin Steele trying to hold this roster together, trying to do that with the help of other staff members. But this is a staff that is short on bodies in terms of coaching staff. It's a program that's obviously very short in the recruiting office. I mean, is Chancellor Plowman going to let Kevin Steele hire anybody? Would anybody come work for Kevin Steele at this point? I mean, are they just going to go short-handed for the next month and a half or however long this is?
Yeah, because I mean, when you really look at just start trying to look at the broad look of everything, of how long this potentially could take. Like, let's say Joe Acevet's interviewed for the job at Central Florida. Let's say let's just start playing devil's advocate here. Let's say he gets that job. Well, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to take that job. He's smart. There's no guarantee he'd be getting paid for 1 year here, but after that, you get more security at Central Florida. Let's say he takes that job. Let's say Derek Hansen goes back to the NFL, down 2. That means you're down an O-line coach, an outside linebackers coach,
defensive line coach,
an actual linebackers coach, and then your defensive coordinator and your tight ends coach. You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden you start connecting dots a little bit. It don't take a lot to be all of a sudden playing with half a hand or whatever else. So I mean, I don't know if he can make those hires. So how can you let him make a hire unless you're going to make him the guy?
Yeah, and who's going to come under those circumstances? If they don't, who is going to come? That's why I think, the interim head coach tag has been thrown out there. I mean, if you
don't see it. I just don't see it.
I mean,
you can't recruit the class of 22.
No, exactly.
With that.
I completely agree. You can't. I mean, you're throwing away a recruiting year. Just throwing it away. You're going to have just a hole on your roster from that.
When Ohio State did that, it was much later in the game, and you were only trying to get through football season, so to speak. And then by the end of football season, think about it, Urban was hired, and boom, boom, boom. They had a much better roster than Tennessee currently does. So,
and I know people. AP, you put it in the chat, and a lot of people don't want to hear it. I mean, I think that Steele getting the gig is a realistic option. Tennessee goes the Arkansas model.
Yeah, again, to me, that's the thing that people like they think I'm pushing Kevin Steele. No, I just said he's realistic.
It is very realistic.
When you look at the last time this job came open, Tennessee was going to hire Greg Schiano, and then got played by Mike Gundy. Dave Dorn's wife was getting hate messages, and it's like, no, I ain't getting in that mess. Then they were trying to go and get Mike Leach. And before they settled on a finalist 3 after an AD change of Jeremy Pruitt, Kevin Steele, and Mel Tucker, none of which just, lights your hair on fire. As far as just kind of, that doesn't mean one of them can't do a good job. What I'm saying is it's not like, you had all these big timers beating down your door. Well, that was 3 years ago when you were just coming off a sucky season. Now you've got like this investigation, this cloud. Jeremy's just fired with cause, multiple coaches fired for cause. Do you think that all of a sudden all these guys will be like, "Oh, sign me up"?
And
Knoxville.
And you got an established assistant coach in Kevin Steele that, I mean, it looks like you're going to have to keep. I mean, that's not going to be attractive to a lot of candidates.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a 2-year deal here. Is he gonna come work here for 6 weeks and make $900,000? But as a part of what his deal says, I don't know. I mean, I think that. And I think that's why Tennessee's trying to go and wants to go fast and needs to go fast, but you can't be dumb in how you go fast. And it's very clear, first and foremost, that Tennessee's path is they're going to hire an athletics director first, so that the athletics director can't say, well, he wasn't my guy. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that other people aren't going to be involved in hiring the football coach. They'll not have a say. I mean, Plowman, I think, will certainly be involved in that. But clearly, the message is that they want the AD to say, this is their guy. And we'll get to the AD stuff in just a minute. I just wonder, what should Chancellor Plowman's realistic expectations be for Kevin Steele to accomplish here until an AD is in place and you start moving forward in a football in a coaching search for a football coach? I mean, what is a reasonable expectation with a short staff, a non-recruiting staff? I mean, what do you want him to do? I mean, it is really fascinating to me. It starts obviously with trying to hold the roster together, which from a timing standpoint may not be as hard to do as you would think, with classes starting around the country everywhere. How realistic is it for guys to hop and move around, current guys to hop and move around?
And Tennessee is starting late. I mean, there are a lot of places have been going so, but I don't know where they are.
There's a reason Eric Gilbert can't go to Florida right now.
I was going to say, there's
drop ads already happened.
Drop ads happen in a lot of places.
Yeah, and so on Monday night, before we get to the AD stuff, on Monday night, Philip Fulmer, Chancellor Plowman, Kevin Steele had a team meeting. Austin, what do you think? What do you think the message was? What do you think? What do you think Kevin Steele's message was to this team? What would have been your message?
We got to stick together, and which is natural. That's what you're going to hear from anybody in that situation. But more than anything, it was, if you guys like Coach Pruitt, and you all obviously did, I think you're going to like me because Coach Pruitt was my GA, and so I taught him some things. We have similar personalities. Kevin's probably a little bit more old school than Jeremy, but they are similar in demeanor. So I think for the guys that were, maybe hoping for a change privately, they feel like, okay, we got a new guy. And for the people that were really big fans of Jeremy Pruitt, they're like, okay, he's similar to Coach Pruitt. So again, we'll see how it all plays out. I do know the staff felt confident in being able to hold on to most of these kids and keep them out of the portal when they when they close shop up on Monday night. So that, to me, that's a positive. But again, kids are going to go home. They're going to talk to their parents. They're going to reassess. We'll see where things go over the next day or two. I think we'd be floored if Tennessee didn't end up with a few kids in the portal.
Henry T?
I don't know. We'll see. He's not here yet. Question is, does he get to town tomorrow? I think that's a possibility.
Remember, he's already met Kevin Steele as well.
That's right.
Kevin Steele was out there to see him on Friday in that bizarre flight out there while the chancellor and board of trustees and President Randy Boyd were all learning the fate of Jeremy Pruitt's interview with the attorneys that took multiple hours on that Thursday. But Henry T has met Kevin Steele. And then obviously, Austin, you have the signees as well. We've seen some signees come out on Twitter and say they're good to go. Miles Campbell, Tyon Evans. We'll see if anybody else asks out or see if anybody asks out of their letter moving forward. I think that's
to me the two you're looking at. To me, the two you're looking at are Dylan Brooks and Byron Young.
Byron Young was the late signee that Shelton Felton was a huge part of. Of course, Shelton Felton's not here. And Brooks was close to Jeremy Pruitt, although Auburn was the second choice, so he would know Kevin Steele, correct?
Correct. And the reason I bring up those two are the two kids that Philip Fulmer sat on the phone with on, the day before signing day and said, everything is going to be fine. Coach Pruitt's our coach. You should sign. And they signed. So, I mean, and I get it. At that time, I think Coach Fulmer probably did think everything was going to be fine. But it ended up not being the case.
Yeah, obviously. But at the time, you're right. I don't think he was intentionally misleading them. I just think at that time that's where it was, but because they weren't as far along in the investigation process in terms of talking to the coaches and everything, as we saw last week, which was such a big week, and talking to Coach, Shelton Felton and Brian Niedermeyer and Jeremy Pruitt all had extensive conversations with the attorneys last week, and obviously we saw the results of that on Monday. The class of 22 in state is such an important class. How do you sell a class? What do you? I mean, is the message just, hey, give us a chance? Is that the message to the 22s right now, Austin?
Well, I think that the message is pretty clear. Give us a chance. Don't do anything hastily. We were in a good spot with most of you guys. Obviously, now we've got a coaching change. Give us a chance to make a hire and let us recruit you. I mean, the problem is like you got some of these kids. There's an offensive tackle out of Louisiana who's not the in-state kid, but similarly, he got like a timeline, like 16 days away. Campbell's his last name. Probably not going to come here because of the timeline. Look at Ty Simpson. Was hoping to do something in January. We established that it's probably going to be February or maybe even March. But even then, if you're not making a hire till, let's say, February 10th.
Oh, God.
Who knows what the timeline will be? It could be they could have an AD.
I don't think that's unrealistic.
I don't either. But to hear it said out loud, just it was like getting kicked in the stomach.
They could have an AD by next Monday, and then a head coach by the following Monday. And what does that? What's that put us? Right at the 1st of February, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, my point is like, if Ty Simpson's trying to do something, that gives him 3-4 weeks to get to know whoever new coach is. I mean, again, timing's everything and all of this. And so, that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of this is just, sometimes it may not work out. And it didn't work out in Cade's case 3 years ago to end up at Tennessee originally. And it may not work out for Ty Simpson to end up here, or Jordan James, or Isaiah Horton, or Cam Miller, or several Dallin Hayden, several of these in-state players that Tennessee likes a lot.
It's hard to imagine this thing being done in 2 weeks' time on both fronts. To me, maybe I'm crazy, but that seems like a very wishful timeline to try to get.
I think the only way that happens is if they know John Gilbert's their guy and they're going to move quick. And the fact that, and I've heard tonight from a reliable source that it is not, that's not a slam dunk. And yeah, he's certainly a candidate, but it's not like he's our guy. We're going to have the press conference Friday. And if that was the case, why would you hire a search firm and pay him $120,000?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, he's clearly going to be on the list and he's clearly going to get an interview, but I don't think he's going to be the only one. Mark Ingram at UAB, I think will get an interview. I would be surprised if he didn't. And then it's, is there a sitting AD somewhere that's looking to make a move? Todd Stewart's at Western Kentucky. Is he ready for an SEC job? I don't know. Mitch Barnhart's is a name that you throw in there because he's been at Tennessee before. Is he growing tired at Kentucky? He's the longest tenured AD at the same school in the SEC, making $1 million a year at Kentucky. Does he want to continue on there, or is he looking to at this point in his life to make a move? I kind of tend to think he's pretty content at Kentucky, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's interested in making a move. Don't you think they have to hire someone who's a current AD or is a recently retired sitting AD to help them navigate through what's in front of them? Totally.
But I also think that you're helped by the fact, it's not a name a lot of people know, but I know we all do, that Reed Sigmund is a behind-the-scenes guy that a lot of people at Tennessee think does a fantastic job kind of in that number 2 role. So whoever you hire is going to get a lot of help from that direction. But I think ideally you hire somebody that's, kind of making maybe not a lateral move, but has been at a similar Power 5 job. I think your concerns about Gilbert, being at Southern Miss and East Carolina are mitigated somewhat by the fact that he was here for 5 years and he knows the lay of the land. He knows the money people that you're going to deal with. He's going to have, support from people that are still here, like Rick Barnes, that know him and how he operates. So, I think if you're going to hire a guy from the smaller school, it's got to be somebody with Tennessee ties like Gilbert or Markey.
Like John Curry.
I don't think John Curry.
Mike Hamilton's out there. Bring Hamilton home.
I mean, listen, I think the two most prevalent names, and rightfully so, are Ingram and John Gilbert. But I mean, you hired a search firm to look at a bunch of names out there, right? I mean, otherwise, you can move pretty fast and pretty forward, with things. And I think they do want to go fast. I think you hire a search firm for your own protection. Obviously, Tennessee made a mistake not hiring a search firm before and hiring a coach, and it didn't work out. It was a mistake because that coach wasn't vetted out the way it needed to be. And that was Donnie Tyndall. And ironically, John Gilbert was involved in that situation at that point with Dave Hart. So, but you're paying a lot of money to talk to more than 2 people, I think, if you're Tennessee, but they do have to go fast. That there's no question that they have to go fast moving forward, because AP, if you want any more transfers, and you're not going to get them right now, but at the end of the spring semester, I mean, you got to have people in place pretty quickly, right? I mean,
you do. I mean, I think that's the most realistic side of finishing out the 21 class, is to take transfers after spring, because you have a head coach in place by then, new pack of kids that have went through spring and said, I didn't like the chewing gum I ate today or whatever, and they went into the portal. That's the thing. So, I mean, I think that's the most realistic thing. Because, I mean, Brent, what kind of kids can they get right now? What offensive linemen? Because they need offensive linemen.
I don't think you can sign anybody right now.
Coming here,
nobody
without an offensive line coach.
Yeah, and you don't know who the head coach is going to be, and then there's the cloud that people are going to ask and wonder, what's the punishment for the program going to be?
I get to go to a bowl game next year.
I mean, is there a postseason ban? Is there a multi-year postseason ban? Tennessee doesn't know what their scholarship numbers are going to be. Is that going to be affected? Is more of this going to fall on the coaches who were just fired than it is on the university, because the university made swift action when they got the results of the investigation, and they didn't just let one person go and say, hey, this was a rogue person. They made sweeping changes, in things there. Does that help them in the eyes of the NCAA? That's why you hire the Glacier Group. That's why you hire Michael Glaciers, to try to help you formulate the best path to mitigate the damages against you with the NCAA.
Where do you stand on that? I mean, I think it's going to play well. I mean, I don't think Tennessee is going to come away unscathed, but I think the decisive and wide sweeping actions that Plowman took today is going to really help them when it comes to the enforcement committee.
And depending on who tries to get this job, I think, don't you think that they have a little leverage to stand on to get a little more security in their deal with the potential thing that looms?
I mean, I think it could maybe even be like a 7-year deal, like you saw Matt Rule with at Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, I think to get into a candidate, to get a candidate to be in the market for somebody out there, I think a candidate's going to demand that kind of length of contract. I don't think anybody's coming here for a 5-year deal, unknowing, without knowing what your penalties are going to be. Because if you get here and you take a 5-year deal and the penalties are much worse than you're being led to believe, do you have a fighting chance?
Yeah, your first 2 years are basically just trying to dig out of the grave.
Yeah,
if
you get slammed by the NCAA. So yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. That you're going to have people you're going to want those people, or the head coach is going to want to be on a long-term deal. And then again, you got to not just hire coaches, you're hiring a recruiting office and everything else. So you got a whole lot going on. There's a whole lot we're going to continue to talk about on the message board and continue to have stories and continue to dig for more information as the search gets underway for an athletics director. That's going to happen first. And then, Rob, as we exit out the door here quickly, I know most of this obviously is focused on football. Tennessee is playing a basketball game against Florida on the road. A Florida team that's a little bit hard to get a handle on because they've had injury, they've had some COVID issues as well. Tennessee basketball team that is in spurts playing really good basketball and in spurts playing some okay basketball within the game, probably not playing as complete of a game as Rick Barnes wants, and probably not up to the unrealistic expectations of a complete game. Where do you think this Tennessee team is as they go into this week of conference play?
I think they're on an upward trajectory. I think it seems pretty clear to me that they're not as consistent as they need to be, but they're getting there. I think they're starting to kind of establish a baseline of what you can expect every night. I really like their chances against Florida. I think Florida is one of the biggest disappointments in the league this year. With the guys they brought back, Trey Mann, Scotty Barnes, getting worked at home by Kentucky like they did last Saturday was, they didn't have Barnes, so that's one thing, but they just don't scare me if I'm Tennessee. I think Tennessee gives them real problems with Tennessee's defense. And as far as the team itself, I think the most fascinating subplot right now, and it's one we've talked about a lot on the board, is does a third post emerge, or does Rick say, screw it, we're playing small ball? And I'm leaning hard towards small ball myself personally right now, because Anasicki and Camwa the production has just not been there. And you lose a couple of inches, but I don't know about you, but I'm not taking Josiah James out or Keon Johnson out to play either one of those two guys. I'll play small and make the other team adjust.
How much does that, is that a huge, make them an even greater liability on the rebounding end, or do you think that's mitigated because Anasicki's been okay as a rebounder? Kamwa has just not been great as a rebounder. Keon Johnson's been solid. James pretty much rebounds as well as anybody on this team.
I don't think
it doesn't change that variable very much.
I don't think it hurts it at all, really. Yes, you're a better rebounding team if Anasicki's on the floor, but you lose so much else in so many other areas. Camwa, I'm long on Camwa stock. I think that he's going to be a contributor here before it's all said and done, but it's just not there right now. And unless you're talking about a 6'9" future NBA power forward, Keon and Josiah can guard most of the fours that you're going to see in this league. And most of the fours that you're going to see in this league don't have a chance in hell at guarding Keon or Josiah on the other end of the floor.
Yep, it creates an interesting offensive matchup that should be in Tennessee's favor. We'll see what that lineup looks like as Tennessee takes on Florida. We'll have full coverage of that and some hoops coverage out there, and obviously plenty of coverage with everything that's surrounding the Tennessee football program and the athletics program at this point in time. That's going to do it for this edition of the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast. For Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.